Whoa.
Oh, wow, your breath stinks.
What do you want me to do about it?
Maybe get some gum.
I guess we could make some spruce gum. All right, we're here in the Conifer Woods in beautiful Montana, and we're gonna see if we can collect enough spruce resin to make some traditional spruce gum. Okay, so here's our first spruce tree. Pretty good looking tree, and it looks like it has a bunch of resin, and we're looking for a yellow to clear resin, ideally, just a lot fresher. So all you really need is a jar or some sort of container that you don't mind getting dirty and full of resin, because you're probably not going to get it out again. Then I just have an old butter knife here, and I'm just going to start scraping some of this off. It's okay if you get a little bit of wood in there, because later it's not going to be an issue at all. We'll be melting this, so you'll be separating it from the wood. So here it looks like there's a good amount of resin, and oftentimes the tree will start producing this when it's wounded. So you also don't want to take too much, but a little bit on top won't be a big issue for the tree. We're just going to pop a bunch of this off. This tree does have a lot of older resin, it looks like, on it. We're not necessarily looking for the super dark or brownish reddish stuff. Like I said, we want the yellow to whitish colored ones on here. So we'll see how much we can get from this tree. Hopefully we can find one with a lot of new resin. Looks like there's some up here. And watch out to not really get this on your hands or clothes, because it's really not going to come out. So here's some really fresh, clear resin. That's good looking resin right there. So here we have a spruce tree. Usually needles pointing up and the branches also pointing up more. And the needles are very sharp and you can easily roll them between your fingers.
Okay.
Got most of it?
That's what I can reach.
Nice. Let's find one with a really big wound on there. This is not an easy spot to get to. So right here we found a tree with a pretty good wound on it, but very smooth bark. And after looking at the needles, this is actually a fir tree and not a spruce. We're not looking for a fir, we're looking for a pure traditional spruce gum. So we're gonna keep looking to see if we can find a spruce with a big wound on it like this. So there's hopefully a lot of resin for us to harvest. So we've been staying on trail just because we didn't really want to get wet, but haven't found too many spruce trees that we're looking for in terms of big wound, lots of resin to easily harvest and whatnot. We're going to try going off trail now, get a bit more into the thick stuff. So hopefully we'll find the spruce tree that'll produce.
The one to rule them all. Let's go, buddy.
Should have brought those gaiters.
I know. Such is life.
How's it going over there? No one said this was going to be easy.
I just want you to have better breath.
Gotta work for that spruce gum. If you want me to have better breath, this is what we got to do today.
Oh my goodness.
So we're looking at this tree over here from afar. Kind of looks like a spruce. Looks like it's got a pretty Nice sized wound on it.
Hey.
Right over there somewhere. So we're gonna see
What is this?
if that one will produce. That looks like a fir just based on the very smooth looking bark.
Yeah.
So here's the tree we're just looking at. Doesn't look like a spruce to me based on the needles.
Oh, is this a
But
spruce?
it's got a big wound. Look at that. Lots of pitch. Lots of resin in there. You find one?
Yeah. It's rolly.
Okay, let me come over. Okay, we did find a really good spruce here. And it's got a lot of resin. Nice. Good find,
Wow.
Lindy. Looks like there's a good amount on there, huh? Wow, yeah. That's nice. There's a lot of resin on it.
They look like little candy
Oh yeah,
crystals.
look at that wound right there.
Which one?
That. That's definitely the kind of resin we're
Apparently.
looking for. Nice and yellow.
This tree must have been on Tinder.
Why?
It's wounded.
If you can find this kind of really clear resin, that's the freshest. And here's the needles we're looking at. Very pokey. Definitely a spruce. And the needles are on these little wooden pegs, which is another big ID factor for spruce.
Crazy how much there is.
Yeah, this one could maybe get us enough for what we need.
Oh yeah.
It's filling up. Getting there. We want that whole thing full.
Some of it's really fresh.
Yeah. So in the 1800s, before there was other gum, the spruce gum was like the thing you could get at all the stores and general stores and whatnot. Everyone wanted some of that spruce gum back then.
Is this stuff too brown?
I think that's fine.
Like this stuff too?
Yeah. I just try to get stuff that doesn't have a bunch of moss on it and isn't super old looking. But yeah, people would use the spruce gum for multiple days, so when they were done chewing it, they would just keep it in a little tin and reuse it the next day. Sounds gross in today's standards, but back then they were all about it.
Were you one of those kids that used to save your gum for the next day?
No. Boogers, though, that's another thing.
Yeah, you put them behind your ear.
Yes.
Keep them for later.
Yeah, nutrient dense. Yeah, it looks like there's some good chunks on here. Smells phenomenal. I feel like I'm mining here. You know? I'm playing some World of Warcraft, but I'm like mining spruce resin instead of ore. It looks really good in here. There's a lot on this tree. This tree looks like it's hurting a bit. We could probably just spend all day harvesting from this tree.
You think it's been to therapy lately?
I don't know. This might be therapy for it. I mean, most of what's on this tree here is resin, it seems like. So it seems like way up there, there's some giant chunks of resin. Sometimes you can find like literally a fistful. You can just break off. Next time I think I'm gonna actually bring a climbing stick, like a tree stand climbing stick, so we can get way up into the tree. But for now, this will work. beyond getting the pitch, the spruce are a really awesome tree that people have used forever for all sorts of things, including tea, which we actually brought some water to make some tea. Then you can eat the cones as well as the spruce tips, and you can make extracts out of the needles. So lots of uses for it. And like I said, people have been using it around the world for thousands of years. It's a very good medicinal plant. We're actually doing extract right now at home as well. It needs to sit in the alcohol and vodka for about 8 weeks, the needles, before it's fully extracted. There is a ton up there, just big chunks. I just can't seem to reach them. Good thing we brought enough time. Ideally, we just find that one tree in a bit here that's got just giant chunks for us to break off.
This one almost did. They're just a bit old.
Yeah, the bottom ones here don't look the freshest. So right here, you can see some of the older pieces of resin I was talking about. They're a lot more red. Looks like they have some sort of lichen already growing on them. That's not what we're after necessarily. Just won't produce the best gum. Waffles and I will pave the way. I mean. Man, Montana gets some deep snow. Don't recommend coming here. So here is exactly what we're looking for, but it's a pine tree. Nice big wound with a lot of bigger chunks of resin on there. If we can find this for spruce and have the tree be full of it, that's the mother lode. So our strategy now is to kind of walk along the trail, hoping that we'll find trees that the Forest Service has cut, like that one has a bunch of branches missing. And along those branches, the tree has a wound now, and that's where it's gonna have a lot of resin. So we just gotta find a good spruce like that now. Come over here quick, Lindy. Let's see how much we got so far. Nice, about halfway full.
Yeah, a little under.
Yeah. How does it smell?
Nature-y.
Yeah, really refreshing.
It's really nice.
I can't wait for the gum. It's gonna be good.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll finally have good breath.
I hope so.
No, I just cut myself.
Brad,
Yeah,
what the heck do you do?
I slipped with my knife.
On your knife?
Yeah. I was getting too ambitious harvesting. So I got a bit too ambitious with my knife and got a pretty deep cut on my index finger here. And it wouldn't stop bleeding. So I just took some really fresh spruce resin and put it on there, and it's literally like glue, and just closed it right on up. And it's got antimicrobial properties, so it's another thing you can use the spruce resin for. If you cut yourself in the woods, use it like that to close up wounds and whatnot. Because if it's good enough for the tree, it's good enough for me. So here's another thing we just discovered. When you try to crawl under these low-hanging thick branches in the spruce, don't take your head off like me, because now I have a bunch of branches with resin in my hair. So especially if you got long hair, this is not fun. I wonder if it's going to come out. I'm probably going to find pieces of spruce in my hair days from now.
Just found out how women feel in the outdoors.
Yep, just found out. So definitely wear a hat while you're out here. All right, so we're out of time, sadly. We've been looking for about 2.5 hours now. Got a little more than 3/4 of the way of the jar full.
Yeah.
We didn't see any spruce that were just a mother load, besides that first one, but none like with giant big globs of resin on there. Saw plenty of pine that had it. We could have probably been done in like half an hour if we were going
If
after
that.
pine. Yeah. So as long as you can find those really good spruce trees that have a big wound, I think this is a lot easier. But it's been a beautiful day.
Been very fun. It's nice to get out. That's
It
for
has
sure.
been, yeah. So we're gonna go home now, and then we're gonna take this and make spruce gum out of it. Hopefully it'll give us enough to at least have a few for each of us to try it out. And then ideally I'll have the most beautiful smelling breath.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. Okay, so we're back at home and we have our spruce resin here. Next up, we're gonna have to melt this using a pot and a strainer in the oven. And what that's gonna do is basically liquefy this spruce resin. It's gonna strain it through the strainer, leaving behind a lot of those particles that we don't want, like leftovers from the bark from the tree, needles, lichen, you know, all the little residues that just got in this jar from collecting the resin. That's just something that's gonna likely happen to you while you're collecting. You know, there's gonna be little pieces falling in there, and we just don't want that in the final gum product. So here I have a tempered glass pot that we're gonna be using in the oven, so it's oven safe. That's very important, but you can really use any pot here. We also have a metal strainer that fits perfectly on the pot to put our resin in there and let it melt through. And you're also gonna need some tin foil and some parchment paper. Now, one thing I do have to mention is that whatever pot and tools in general you're gonna use for melting this resin, it's gonna get very dirty and sticky, and that resin, the residues are not gonna really come out. So whatever you're gonna use is probably gonna be are probably gonna be your tools for making spruce gum or melting resin forever. So keep that in mind and use something that you don't mind getting full of resin. Okay, we have our pot right here. Now we're going to take our tin foil and get a little piece off there. And we're going to use this to line the bottom. So just line the bottom just like that. Now get some parchment paper. And then we're going to use this parchment paper to do a second layer. The parchment paper is important because that's what's going to catch the rendered spruce resin. Then we're just going to put our strainer on top like this. And now let me move the camera quick. All right, so we have our spruce resin here. We're just going to open it up. And now we're going to dump it all into the strainer here. As you can see, this jar is already super sticky and dirty, and I don't think I'll ever be able to use it for anything but this. That's a nice chunk. Make sure too that you don't let it fall on your really nice cutting boards. My cutting board here is from my podcast sponsor, Montana Block, and I'm planning on having this for the rest of my life, so I don't want any resin on there. The reason we're using parchment paper is because that's gonna allow us to easily remove the rendered spruce resin later. Whereas from what I've been watching and learning about this, if you use just a pot or use tin foil or something like that directly under the strainer, you're more likely to lose some of the resin. Parchment paper, it tends to come off pretty easily. All right, one thing I forgot to do that is definitely a good idea to do before you set it up like this is to actually, once you have your pitch and resin in the strainer to just tap it a bunch to get some of those impurities out, because there's a bunch of crud that's in there that you don't really want straining through and in your gum. So just shake it a bit like this. All right, next up, we're ready to preheat the oven. I'm gonna set the oven to 250 and it's gonna be in there for, I'm assuming, anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. But basically what we want is for all of this resin to render out, the impurities like the bark and whatnot to be left behind, and it's done when it stops dripping. Then you know that all of the resin has rendered out and you're ready to go on to the next step. All right, so let's do bake 250. While we wait, let me just show you real quick this beautiful piece of resin. It smells so good. All right, y'all, the oven is ready to go. So I'm just literally gonna put it in there and see what happens. All right, guys, so it's been about 40 minutes now. I didn't hear the timer go off, so I pulled out the resin from the oven, and I'm surprised at how much is melted already. I thought it would go a lot slower, but here we go. So this is all the rendered spruce pitch so far. Good amount in there. Looks like there's still some dripping out of there though. So I'm just gonna put it back and let that go for a little longer and check in like half an hour again, because again, I thought this would take 3 to 4 hours, but so far, just based on what I'm seeing here, it might go a lot quicker. Okay, it's been about another 30 to 40 minutes. Let's check on it the second time to see where we're at here. Oven is still at 250. Ooh, that's a good smell. Nice. All right, so I would definitely recommend some sort of mitten like this here, because it can get pretty hot. But just looking at this, it looks like to me like most of the resin has rendered out. Let's just see if it's still dripping at all. Doesn't look like it's really dripping. So what I'm going to do next is let this resin that has rendered out cool down a bit until it has a more softer, like semi-soft consistency. Right now it's very liquid. And once I can actually grab it and get it off the parchment paper, I'm going to form it quickly into like a sausage. And from there we can then go on to the next step. So you can see here right now, it's still pretty squishy, which is how you want it. On the outside here, on the edges, it's already become a little brittle. So I'm gonna get this off the parchment paper and then start rolling it into a roll, like a sausage-like structure. It's coming off pretty easy off the parchment paper, and look at this, beautiful. So I'm just gonna start rolling it like this now. We want a nice long roll. Might be even easier to break it apart now. Look at that. That's cool. There you can really see it now. Just want to work quick here. Shape it into a nice long roll. And then from there, I'll show you what to do next. Now, in a lot of videos I was watching, people were having to put this back into the oven every once in a while to let it soften a bit more. But it seems like ours here might be fine to just do it on one shot. So we'll see if it works. It does go pretty quick. So I'm gonna keep it about this size because that's how big I want my gum to be later, roughly. But you know, here you can do whatever you want. If you want giant pieces of gum, you can put this thing into your mouth. I wouldn't recommend it. It's a powerful gum. Now your breath might not smell for weeks though, if you do that. Just keep forming this. And I'm sure the more you do this, the prettier it's gonna get. Like, I'm not very good with aesthetics. It is getting pretty hard now, so I might have to put it back into the oven for a bit. I'm gonna put this one in the oven in just a sec, but I'm gonna show you quick what you do once they're nicely formed like that. So we're just gonna basically make little indents like that. I won't cut it fully, but later you'll be able to nicely break these apart once this hardens fully. Yeah, I think all of them I'm gonna have to put into the oven again here just to soften them so we can form them a bit better, make this hopefully a little bit prettier. All right, you need to be really quick with this. As you can tell, I had it in there for like 5 minutes now, and it melted way too much, and I lost some off the parchment paper going onto this cookie sheet. Hopefully I'll be able to salvage that, and we're not out a bunch of the spruce gum here. But this is kind of what they look like. So here's our finished spruce gum. Super, super pumped about it. It's looking pretty good to me. This reminds me of like amber colored crystals like agates I would be finding along the river rock, you know, almost like gold kind of. So I'm going to try some in just a second here. But the cool thing about these is that one, they're antimicrobial. Unlike most other gum out there, just most other gum either gives you good breath or is just like, you know, really sweet, full of sugar, probably not the best for your teeth. This stuff is actually antimicrobial, which is a big reason why people in the late 1800s and early 1900s used them, or used this gum as like, you know, a daily thing to clean their teeth and keep fresh breath and whatnot. The other thing is that the leftovers from straining and rendering out the good pitch or good resin, whatever was left in the strainer, you can actually use as a fire starter. So don't throw this out. This is super flammable. So is the gum, by the way, but this part is still super flammable, and you could turn this into a candle that smells like forest. You can even use it to just, you know, make like a survival torch, or even if you're outside and you're trying to start a fire and you're looking for ways, you know, you don't have a bunch of kindling, you're looking for ways to get the fire going, you can look for the resin and some of the bark with resin on it to use as a fire starter. So let me just light it up quick here to show you that this indeed burns, and it burns pretty quickly. So here you can tell it's burning, and it burns pretty long actually. And you could just keep this, you know, as a candle almost. And it smells really, really good. So here for the taste testing, the part you've all been waiting for, the part I've been waiting for the entire time here. First time trying this, so let's put one of these pieces in our mouth and see how it goes. It definitely shattered like I expected, a little bit, but now it's already getting a gum consistency. It's not sticking to my teeth like I feared, so I'll be able to speak. I was worried about that. It's not sweet at all, but you do get that spruce flavor, a little bit of citrus. It's fun to chew on. And I don't think, I mean, I cut them kind of into pretty big pieces here, so I could have maybe gone a little smaller next time. So we got plenty of gum here for the next weeks. We're just gonna store it in a jar like this in the pantry in a cool, dark place. So what do you think?
I really like it.
Yeah?
I wish it tasted more like mint.
More minty?
Yeah.
But it's a spruce gum.
I know. I do like the spruce.
You could definitely add some mint to it, you know, garden mint, maybe some foraged ingredients. Like I bet as you're melting it down, you could maybe add some juice, like some huckleberry juice or something like that.
I don't think it would last a long time, but...
Yeah, It might
For the
have
beginning,
a
it would be
lesser
nice.
shelf life.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean the flavor.
So, how is it?
It smells like the forest.
Way better? So you're gonna kiss me now?
No.
Why? I went through all this work and she won't even kiss me?
I'm camera shy.
Oh. All right, that's it. Don't forget to like, comment, and follow along so that you can get closer to your food source and become more resilient.